Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome back. American Thanksgiving just around the corner for those Americans, those lovely Americans like Neil himself here. That's exciting coming up. Hope we already had a fantastic weekend. Hope Neil's all doing well and good too. I know you were busy last week, but hope all is good.
Yeah. I just decided to take a little bit of a break from a lot of stuff. I did obviously do an episode of Flamescast last week. Everybody obviously knows that I was probably the biggest amount of work, like from a content standpoint, that I did last week. Other than covering the Devils game against Carolina on Thursday night, which
Yeah.
I got last minute tickets for that from a brewing company. So shout out to Tom's River Brewing Company for that. I was really generous of
Cool.
them to do that. All good. Pretty good weekend. I'm really glad that we're talking about hockey and just not football because I really can't. I don't want to go into it, nor do I care at this
We don't want to
point.
look at the back wall.
I don't want to look at the back of my wall here.
We can look at ours. We can look at mine.
You can look at Kyle's. Don't look at mine. I'm also in the process of moving. So like this is just there's just so much going on right now. But
It's a wild time.
Overall pretty good. I'll give you like one really hilarious fun fact for you, Kyle. Just found this out today.
Shoot.
So the Devils are playing the Predators tonight in New Jersey.
Okay.
The Devils have not won a home game against the Predators in 9 years. Going into
9 years.
Since 2016-17, the Devils have not beaten the Predators one time in New Jersey. And if they don't do it tonight, that will make it almost 10 years since the last time the Devils won a home game against the Predators. So if that isn't motivation to go and win tonight, I don't know what is. I thought that was nuts when I found that out.
Now's the time to do it because they're shit in the bed.
Yeah, the Predators. I really think they might be sellers at the deadline the way this is going. Like it. Then you have
they're not getting enough from their big boys. They're not getting enough from their big boys, right? Like that's just it's not to
those are long-term contracts too. That's
the
really
thing. They
bad.
just signed them to long-term, and now it's like, well, now all of a
somebody's
sudden
going to get Stamkos for like 50% retained.
Well, I mean, hey, let's talk about this real quick because we brought it up before we jumped on. Like Elliot Friedman just brought up today that the Rangers all of a sudden are looking to shake things up a little bit, and the names that were mentioned were Jacob Trouba and Chris Kreider, right? No position, if we're talking Flames cast here, like there's no position for the Flames to be anywhere near sniffing this at all. So I guess
those guys would impact the Flames in any positive way, shape, or form. Like there's
again,
just no.
Yeah. And again,
if they're trading Adam Fox, I might consider it.
I mean,
maybe not.
That's a bit of a stretch. Well, they already mentioned
Matt Rempe. Would you take Matt Rempe?
Oh, I'd love
Flames. Would you take Matt Rempe
with Ryan Lomberg? I'd love that.
That'd be hilarious. That'd be
a dirty fourth line to go.
That would be a stupid fourth line for sure.
So I guess like we can start with that maybe because it just did happen a couple minutes ago. Why? I think is the main reason, right? Like why? Because they have this identical record between Flames, surprisingly, the Panthers and the Leafs as well in the East. So it's now like, why such a big panic? Is it because, like you mentioned, that they got their what's kicked on Sunday against Edmonton and then did lose to Calgary on Thursday? Yeah, why now all of a sudden?
This is going to come from somebody who obviously is in the area of the New York metropolitan area, and I know a lot of people that cover the Rangers and talk about them. Obviously, our good buddy Jimmy Finizzi, I'm sure he'll have a lot to talk about on the next podcast for sure. I really don't have an answer that makes sense because, again, you mentioned it. The Rangers and Flames, just because we're going to use the Flames, have the same identical record right now. And the difference is the only difference is from a standings perspective, the Flames are point behind the Golden Knights for first place in the Pacific Division, which I'm still not understanding whatsoever.
We'll get into it.
And the Rangers are currently 2 points out of the top three in the Metropolitan Division. And granted, they're behind the Devils, who are in first place by 5 points. But then again, the Devils have played 4 more games than the Rangers. So, like, there's obviously they're going to catch up. But, like, I don't get it. You're 5th in the Eastern Conference.
I got it. I think they just made the biggest mistake of the season by mentioning Chris Kreider's name. That's a huge mistake, right? This guy has been nothing but loyal to you for however many years it's been.
His entire career.
The guy puts up nothing but goals. I mentioned on the live stream Thursday when we were watching the game that I think Kreider had like 11 goals and no assists. So all he does for this team is score and score on the power play. So the fact that he even came up in that message from Elliot Friedman, right, is like, whoa, like, what are we doing here? Like, I think it's such a disrespect to him. But now that it's out there, right, everybody's going to have their pickings because that's a guy they want on their team, especially in the playoffs where you're going to get some power play opportunities. And that's a guy who's a proven goal scorer, especially on the power play, right? Like that to me. And even like when we were watching the game on Thursday, like he had some good chances despite the Flames out shooting them by like 50 shots, which was wild in itself. Kreider played a good game on Thursday. Like he had his chances. It's nothing spectacular, but he just goes in. And I think I like to say it for him, like he's just a better version of a Tyler Toffoli guy. You know what I mean?
I'm glad you said that. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Although at least Toffoli does get assists, but then again, it's like they're very similar players. I just think Kreider's faster. Kreider is faster
totally
by a long shot. We all know Toffoli's never been he's never in his entire career been a even remotely decently fast player.
He is a good skater. He's a great skater, though.
He's a great skater. He just isn't fast, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, not everybody's going to be Connor McDavid and being able to not only be fast, but also be able to stop on a dime and not fall. Like, it's like that. But, like, I just wanted to bring this one thing up with Chris Kreider.
Sure.
I think his contract is what's going on here.
What's the contract?
So his contract is currently at $6.5 million per year, average annual value for this year, next year, and then 2026-27.
So the next 3 years, basically.
So the next 3 years, or we'll go 2.5. We're gonna be like, specific.
That's a great contract, though.
Yes, but I think what's happening is that the Rangers want to find ways to get out of the big contracts that they have put down. I mean, that's their own fault. Again, with Jacob Trouba, they want him out. This is not a shock. We've been knowing this for months that Jacob Trouba he doesn't want to go, but they want him out.
Right.
With Kreider, what it tells me is that they're really trying to dump salary. And I think also this. I don't know if it's for Shesterkin. That's the thing. Well, the thing is this, Kyle. How many more years, from an age standpoint, right? How many more years do the Rangers really have before this is going to be very bad for them in terms of not having a lot of young players in your lineup?
Depends. I think you got, like, if you can lock down Shesterkin long term, I don't think it matters with them. I don't know. Like, it doesn't matter for me what the money is, but it's like defensively, like I think that this is the thing, right? And it kind of came in fruition this past weekend and Thursday, right? Like when the Flames played the Rangers and then they subsequently played the Oilers on Saturday, is that their defense is god awful. They got trounced by the Oilers, and then they allowed 50 shots on net by the Flames on Thursday, which was so surprising. They had like 25 shots on goal.
You're surprised by that?
A little bit, because I didn't watch much Rangers, because I don't know what to expect from them, right? I'm expecting this high-power offense with some really good goaltending. I didn't even think about defensively, where it's like, okay, like you have guys like Fox and Miller and then Trouba as well. It's like, okay, like those aren't some scrub names, right? No, so my worry is that for them, like if you trade Trouba, what kind of value are you going to get from him?
Not much, because again, the contract is the issue, number one. Number two, you're getting a disgruntled player because he doesn't want to leave. Yeah. So that's another issue. And then
that's also, however, that's also on Trouba not making sure that no trade movement clause was in place in his contract.
Well, that's the thing. But then again, if you're in a position where you are going to be happy with where you are, I understand why not having a no trade clause. I get it.
Sure.
Because also, like players.
Okay, fair. Because there's no worry of him leaving.
Right. Because then
Right.
you and for your family, you don't have to sit there and worry about, in a year or two I might get dealt. It's
But
more
it's
like
insurance, isn't
it's
it?
insurance. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And so, like, look at this, Kyle. You take Jacob Trouba off this team. This is a defensive core that you have moving forward. Braden Schneider, Keandre Miller, Ryan Lindgren, Zach Jones, and Adam Fox. I can give you two guys that I think I would rely on to be solid defensemen. Adam Fox and Ryan Lindgren. The problem with Lindgren, the man gets hurt every year. Every
Right.
year he gets some big injury because he blocked his shot. Like, Ryan Lindgren should have been the captain of this Rangers team because of the amount of times he has thrown his body into shots and led the team by example is insane. And the Rangers are playing like they did a decade ago. They have a guy who could easily be a Hall of Fame goaltender. And
Yeah.
they're like, well, we don't have to focus on playing good defense because we
Because
have
we
a guy
have
that can
him.
stop all these shots. So we
Yeah.
are going to focus primarily on offense, screw the defense because we have good goaltending. So they get outshot so often
Yeah.
by teams that they shouldn't be getting outshot by. And that's the result. So to me, it's not a shock that the Flames had that many shots. It's more of, well, that's just how the Rangers play. It was just one of those nights for them where it actually backfired.
I think that was the most impressive things. Like, they peppered him in the first period, where that game with Shesterkin, he was bailing them out on a lot of occasions. When I'm sitting there live with Jimmy, like, he was bailing them out left, right, and center, right? And I thought, like, it kind of crossed my mind halfway through. I'm like, man, why do the Flames have like almost 40 shots and we're almost into the third period here? Like, it was crazy to me, right? So I think you make the right statement there where it's like Shesterkin's bailing them out. That game could have gotten out of hand too if it wasn't for him, right? It did get out of hand on Saturday for them against the Oilers. So, yeah, I mean, listen, it's a perfect transition because we'll quickly talk about the game. But, yeah, like, I don't get putting Kreider's name in there. I get the salary dump. I don't think you get much from Trouba. And I think the Rangers, they're panicking.
You're panicking. It's the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference.
There's
I
no
don't get that.
reason to panic for these guys. You can go out and make a move. If you're worried about that, you can go out and make a move at the deadline.
Bring back Patrick
or now.
Kane.
Well, hell, you can do it now if you want. What are you waiting for?
Do it now. Yeah, like,
right?
There's like, okay. The last thing I'll say about this is this: you talk about like panic. It may not be for the right now. They may be panicking, looking at the long term, saying we may not be good enough in the playoffs. We may
got
get
nothing down the pipeline.
We may get steamrolled in the playoffs because, like, if you look at 2 years ago, how their season ended, right? They went into the playoffs feeling pretty high and mighty about how their season went. They're coming off of going to the Eastern Conference Finals the year before. They're playing the Devils, who were having an unbelievable season, and they dominated They dominated. They just won the first 2 games in New Jersey, and they're thinking, all right, this is going to be a cakewalk through the first round. We're going to Then all it took was one little change, which was the Devils went to Akira Schmid over Vitek Vanacek. They lost the game at home, and all of a sudden they were like, oh, this might be a series. And then it was, oh, no. And you're staring at a 3-2 hole. You go into Game 7 in New Jersey, and you don't even score a goal. You don't even show up.
That's the crazy thing, right?
Right, exactly. And like last year, what was really embarrassing for the Rangers was that final Game 6 against Florida. Artemi Panarin doesn't score a goal or do anything until the last minute when it was already too late.
Right.
Well, I don't like the fact that Kreider's getting a lot of blame here when there's other guys like Artemi Panarin.
Bullshit that he's getting the name call.
It's bullshit because where is Panarin half the time? Where is Zibanejad when the playoffs get underway? Hell, like Capo Caco, like, I'm sorry, but like the dude's gonna go because at least based off of what Ranger fans are telling me. Like, why is Kreider getting shit on when the dude is doing his job for the most part?
Worth mentioning too, Zibanejad was terrible in the face-off draw Thursday night. Backlund was just having a field day with him, right? And so were other guys too, like Audrey. Like, they all played well. Like, that was the crazy thing. They all played well Thursday night against a Rangers team that like we were worried about going in. Like, out of that 4-game homestand that they just had, like, you know, I was looking at that like, man, that was gonna be the toughest game, but it turned out like, man, that could have been a track meet for all we knew. So
Isn't that great? Isn't that
I
great?
think the crazy. Well, like we start seeing this now, right?
Yeah.
If you take a look at the standings, because Florida's fallen off, they've had some tough losses too as well, like losing to Chicago and all that. We're kind of getting in the East here, but we'll get to the West in a second. We'll talk about Calgary because that's the show.
Yeah, I feel like should this first segment be let's talk about other teams other than the Flames? Because like, what's the negativity? Like the
It's
Bruins
unhinged at this point.
The Bruins fired Jim Montgomery, and now he's the head coach of the Blues within 48 hours. I mind you.
If the Panthers don't get their act together, right? I still have them like if they find a way to get in and they make a move at the deadline, like a lot of the teams will, and we all kind of know like that's just how it works.
Of course.
If they find a way to like just get themselves back into it, I think this is still Florida's conference to win in the playoffs, right?
I agree.
This also starts to feel like somebody can come out of nowhere, right? Maybe it's New Jersey, right? Who's been quiet for a little bit, kind of behind the scenes with Toronto and Florida and the Rangers and all that stuff,
They've been
right?
quietly playing really well. I mean, they won 2 games in a row in Florida, which I think surprised everybody.
Right. So then you look at the wild card too, and it's like, okay, the Rangers are still hanging out there. Boston might get their act together. Who knows with Tampa? I don't think Tampa, you know what I mean? Like, I think it is such. Well, like,
freaking Islanders are just hanging around again as they always do.
Here's the scary thing.
Look at Buffalo.
Here's the scary thing, though. Here's the scary thing being a Leaf hater, because I live with a full family of Leaf haters. This could be their chance, right?
Don't say that.
Florida doesn't. Well, no, think about it.
Florida
doesn't get their act together, right? It doesn't matter where the Leafs finish. They can finish first in this division. It doesn't really matter, right? But if Florida doesn't get their act together, this could be the time, right? I like the Leafs right now, and honestly, like the way with the overall lineup and the healthiness of each team, like I like New Jersey too. I think New Jersey's set up pretty well. I know.
I appreciate you being kind to me a little bit.
Once in a while. Okay, let's get into outside of freedom dropping that not long ago, about an hour ago. Let's get into Flames talk here. How about that?
Great. We are 18 minutes in, and we are finally going to talk about it.
Let's do it. Okay. So we had out of a possible 8 points on this 4-game homestand, the Flames, believe it or not, collected all 8 points, and they beat Minnesota on Saturday night, 4-3 in a shootout. Had a lead a little bit late in the period. I mean, they had a great power play that night. They went from 30th in the power play rankings in the NHL all the way up to 18th. 18. It's crazy. Yeah, it was crazy how much they jumped, thanks to Martin Pospisil and, believe it or not, I think it was Kevin Rooney as well, who also got on the power play. So, you know, they go up 3-1. They give one a little bit late there. They could have took a full 8 points there and not give Minnesota any, thanks to, I think it was Marco Rossi there or Matt Boldy there at the end. I can't remember who.
Rossi and Boldy each had 2 points in this.
Well, here I can answer. I was going to say I can answer my own question. Brock Faber and Marco Rossi. So the Flames had a lead with less than 4 minutes to go, up by 2, and all of a sudden Faber makes it a 1-goal game, and then Rossi goes in to tie it. You go into a shootout, and I believe it was Anderson, Kirkland with his signature shootout move again. It seems to be working for whatever reason.
Why not?
Anderson scores, and then Vladar stops it. Flames win it 4-3 in a shootout. Your initial kind of look at this here, I don't know if you caught much of this game on Saturday, but I'll give you the stats there as well. Sure. Flames jump out to an early lead. Wild come back, tie it. They go to a shootout. Nothing crazy in overtime. Flames end up winning it. Your thoughts?
Penalty kill is getting better. They did give a power play goal, I understand, but like overall, I think it's been better. I will just say that, which is good. A lot of block shots in this one for the Flames. They had 18, which is important. If you're getting that many in a game like this, then you're giving yourself a really good chance to win.
Right,
which is important. It's really funny to think about where we were like a week ago talking about like, you know, again, we were saying like, let's try to get a decent amount of points here. If they get 5, great.
No one on earth thought we'd get all 8.
No, not a soul. And I guarantee if you ask any Flames fan, they didn't think that either. You go into that Rangers game, which we'll get into, and I definitely thought that was going to be the one that like, okay.
We all did.
Yeah, right. Even the Minnesota game, I was like, okay, you know, Minnesota's been playing pretty decently.
Really
I know, yeah, and it's like, well, you know, to me, what a game like this shows is that the Flames are once again, just like they were early in the season, they're establishing their identity and playing their system to a T.
Yeah.
And that's what I like. What I like is that they're not being carried by one or two guys. It's a collective effort of guys finding ways to contribute. Pospisil getting a goal. You have Kevin Rooney getting a goal that wasn't an empty netter. You have Kirkland, who constantly is getting points like there's no tomorrow. Mackenzie Weegar is arguably becoming one of the most underrated players in the NHL the way he's been playing this year. And then you have like the goaltending wasn't great, but here's the other thing. They got timely saves when they needed to.
Yes, from Vladar. Yeah.
From Vladar, for sure. He needed to make some timely saves, and he did. So, like, overall, I'm really impressed with how much fight this team has on a night-to-night basis. I'm loving the fight from this Flames team. I really am. It makes it fun to watch when the expectations are not high.
Yeah.
When the expectations are not high and you're not expected to do much, them fighting every game, they've had maybe like 2 games this season so far where they didn't show up.
Yeah.
And then it's like from that win against the Devils a couple weeks ago to now, they've completely turned it around again, and they're just fun to watch.
They're I think 7-1-1, or no, sorry, 7-1-2 in their last 10 games. That's wild to think about, right? I wanted to point out
the title should have been a wild homestand.
I know, right?
It should have.
Sharon Govich on the power play has looked really good. You know, he's got a wicked one-timer. He had it on Thursday against the Rangers, and he had it again on Saturday against the Wild. He's got such a good one-timer, and I want to see more of that. That's great. Like, that's the type of stuff that we were urging to see when it's like, you know, they are now all of a sudden shots on goal galore. They outshot the Wild in this one. They had 50 shots on Thursday against the Rangers in that one.
Yeah.
It's been shots galore. And I go, great. And you know what? Like, I commend them. They played really, really well these last 2 games. I'm really happy with the way I've been seeing Sharon Govich play. Also happy to see Pospisil as well get one, because he's had a tough start to the year and he's battling in front of the net. He got a good feed from Calgary on this power play. So happy to see Pospisil playing well too. You know, Huska kind of just said it in the press conference afterwards that, you know what, like the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game there where you see Brock Faber and I think it was Marco Rossi, you know, get too late. He's like, you know what, we kind of fumbled a little bit at the end. Not like he's not frustrated, but he's just like, yeah, you know what, we did kind of give that up a little bit late. But he said overall, like, I loved our game. He's been saying that he's loving their game and he's loving what they're seeing. And it's crazy to think about that, you know, this is the type of stuff that we're seeing. My other thing I'll say just real quick with this game is that, and just kind of what we've seen in this 4-game homestand, is the goaltending has been sensational this season. I would like to argue that this 2 tandem here, maybe a hot take, but I think they've been the best in the league so far. Yeah. I think this is the 2 best goalie tandem. If you're just looking at stats,
I could make an argument that there's one that's been just as productive, but maybe this is just bias. But recently, the tandem of Markstrom and Jake Allen in New Jersey has been very good.
Okay.
They've been playing really well. But I definitely could agree with you about Wolf and Vladar being one of the best tandems in the league just from a consistent basis. They're getting the saves when they need to, and that's all you can ask for. And Dustin Wolf, I mean, shoot, man, he has been one of the talks of the league right now, the way he's been playing.
He's currently leading the Calder race, which he should. He 100% should. I hope he does too, man.
Even if the Flames don't make the playoffs, if we get individual things like that, that's a success in my
opinion. It's a huge plus, right?
Right.
Yeah, and you know, we talk about it. We talk about all the draft picks and stuff, and it's like, man, like we're at American Thanksgiving, which in some people's eyes is kind of like, okay, now we're starting to separate the cream from the crop here, right? The Flames have a chance tonight before Thanksgiving to be first place in the Pacific Division. Like, who would have thought?
Very struggling Senators team.
Right. And we'll get into this road trip here in a minute too. But yeah, like overall, what a great homestand. It's a really good team to play against at home. I've always said it. I know that this team can play well at home. They're always good in their barn. I've always said they've struggled a little bit on the road. So I'd like to see them adjust a little bit because of the performances that we saw against Montreal, Boston, and Buffalo earlier on in November. So I'm hoping we can change that.
Yeah.
And overall though, like to get 8 out of the 8 points for a homestand has been sensational. And I don't know if you remember our talk from the beginning of November, but we looked at the schedule for this month, and I think I said like, man, they just need like 7 wins, and I'm okay with that, right? They fully exceeded that. I think they have like 8 or 9, and they still have 5 games left.
Currently have 7.
Right.
They have 7 right now.
So they got to the benchmark, and I like to believe that they're going to get. We'll talk about the road trip coming up here, but
we'll preview the road trip in a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they've already exceeded expectations. So we've separated a little bit now from the cream of the crop because American Thanksgiving's coming up. Like, when do the conversations start happening where this team has a legitimate shot at getting in? Because it's still tight. It's still really, really tight.
It is. Yeah, I think for me, and this is how I operate. I don't look at American Thanksgiving as like the part where I start to really say like, okay, like this is where we're at. I am the person that looks at January 1st as the beginning of like, this is where we're at. So you're talking about, if we're going off of from where I am, you got another full month to go. And I'm not knocking on the Flames at all. I'm not saying like, oh, it's time to have it's more of just like, we need to get a little bit closer to the halfway point, just from a game standpoint, the halfway point of the season. I just want a little bit closer. And I look at, honestly, Kyle, I look at this road trip and the month of December. There are a ton of winnable games here. That earlier this year, I would have said, probably not. Now, we're looking at a completely different story here. And I would like to hope that the Flames get at least 4 out of the possible 8 points on this road trip.
They need to.
Especially with like the back-to-back next Friday and Saturday. Because
just get one.
You got to get one of those two.
Yeah.
One of them.
So
we'll see. But that's me.
Like,
that's my opinion.
Before we get into the road trip, we'll take a quick look at the standings and then we'll do some
Look at the standings.
That's why I say like it's so tight. But I'll say this.
Easy.
I think we said like for the Central at the beginning of the year that 2 spots were going to be taken in the wild card, right? That's clearly not the case because all the teams below now you see are Edmonton, Vancouver, Seattle, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like it's still like 12-9 for Colorado being a number 1 wildcard team is not good. Like you're 3 games over 500. The Oilers are, well, if you take those two overtime losses, they're a 500 team, right? Vancouver's in a tough spot because they don't know when Demko comes back. JT Miller out for personal reasons now. Hope all is good there. And for whatever reason, Elias Pettersson hasn't been Elias Pettersson, right?
Dude, what the heck has happened to Elias Pettersson?
It makes no sense. So I look at it very simply like
Seattle.
This. I'm going to look at it like this. If Calgary finishes better than LA, I think the Flames get in. I think they just have to be better than LA. And if you want to throw in Seattle, sure. I think
Seattle only recently has found their groove. They got off to a slow start.
Right.
But they have been playing a lot better because the goaltending has been there for them.
And I think like it's so hard not to talk about with the road trip coming up, but it is. But it's like, you know what? The one thing that's like, it's crazy what stands out to me here is their home and away record for Calgary. 9-3 at home, and they're 500 all across the board on the road, right?
Nice.
And 6-2. Sorry, I misspoke. 6-2 in their last 10 games, which is still really, really good, right?
Still really good.
So
really good.
That's the thing. Like with Colorado, like I'm still puzzled about their goaltending situation. I still don't trust. I don't trust LA. I do not trust the Kings for whatever reason. I don't trust it. I think at some point the wheels are going to fall off, right?
Okay.
Oilers, I think they just find their way in. I don't know how this
Because
is
it's
all going to shape out, right?
yeah. Mhm.
But it's just very strange that tonight the Flames could be first in the Pacific tonight.
Yeah.
How is this possible?
Anything's possible with Pospisil.
Funny.
Sorry, it was just it was set up. I just wanted to say it. But like we're kind of at one of those weird moments where we're kind of waiting for the usual stuff to happen. Like we're
But I
waiting for
don't think
Colorado
it
to figure it out.
is.
Well, that's the thing. Like you're still like, okay, like Colorado, like you gonna do something soon? Edmonton, you gonna wake
Right.
up any minute now? Like you're waiting for that moment,
Yeah.
like things explode back to like normal. And you're like, okay, now we're back to reality. Like that's what we were thinking at the beginning of this year when we started off the year that we did. We're thinking like, okay, like at some point we're gonna fall back down to earth. And it looked like we were for a bit there. Then we get that win against New Jersey, and then all of a sudden we've won 4 in a row. We're two, like we might be in first place by the end of tonight. Like, by the way, this is a trap game, folks, and I can't believe I'm
Oh,
saying
it
that from
is
a Flames
such a
perspective.
trap
This
game
is a
tonight.
trap game and a half. You are
Yeah.
facing a struggling Senators team who has lost 5 in a row, and you're on national TV. And so,
It's a trap game for
this
sure.
is
It's
a trap game
100%
and a
a
half.
trap game. Yeah. Now, Allmark, I think we'll find out later because Allmark, he started Saturday against Vancouver. I don't know who goes in place tonight, but you're
It
right.
sounds
It's
like to me from
100%
what
a
I
trap
saw
game.
from morning skate, I think it's probably going to be Allmark. I tried to see if Forsberg might get the start, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it is such a trap game though because they are pissed off that they're losing 5 in a row. Like they should not be in this spot, and it's still attainable for the Senators. So we'll take a break. We'll get into some ads, and then we'll talk about this road trip coming up.
We'll get into the entirety of the road trip.
We got to get into it because it's important. But yeah, let's dive into some ads, and we'll be right back with whatever this road trip is coming up. The 2024-25 NHL season still has that new car smell, and the action is heating up at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Super easy for first-timers to get started at DraftKings Sportsbook. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. When you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. If you have a gambling problem, you can call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. And again, on behalf of the Boot and Hill Casino and Resorts, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Voided in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gambling resources, see dkng.com/ice. Copyright the NHL 2024. All rights are reserved. Also sponsored by Game Time. I told Neil that I went to a comedy show recently, and I've also officially got tickets for February. Yay!
He's done it.
Done it. Booked it through Game Time, going to see the Avalanche taking on the Flames. They were great ticket prices. You have to do the conversion, obviously, with US to Canadian, but still, now I'm so excited about it. The whole process was super easy, very easy to sign up for an account. You literally just give them your email. You can redeem THPN as the code, and then you go out, you look at the seat views, you look at everything there. It's fantastic, and it's very simple to use. So Game Time Picks is a new feature for Game Time, which helps filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. It allows you to also toggle the feature of all-in pricing to show you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy with the seat views. You get the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And the Game Time ticket coverage allows you to have the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. You can download the Game Time app now, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And again, create an account, redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it?
It's game time.
I like how you just do that for me now. It's great.
I like on like Devil's State of Mind, I tend to snap my fingers a lot. So it's just like a natural thing that I do. So like, just I don't know what I don't remember even when I started doing that on here, but I just did it one time, and I'm like, it just
It
works.
works.
It works. Yeah, love
All
it.
right, let's dive in. Big road trip coming up. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but from my
I got it.
understanding, it is you got amazing. So we got tonight,
That's
obviously
gonna be
on
amazing.
Amazon Prime. They're going to be in Ottawa, starting on this road trip. Again, we mentioned it before
I
the
hate
break,
these
where
primetime games.
it's a weird primetime
I
game to
don't
have.
like it.
You got a
Feels
lot of great.
weird. It
It
feels
is.
strange.
I think because it's a two Canadian markets, right? Like this is probably one of the other
Yeah,
reasons why they want to try to get into it a bit more. But it's such a weird, like you have so many other good matchups out there tonight. Like why this one? It doesn't make sense. Anyway, so yeah, tough
yeah,
road
that's
trip.
a good
Well,
point.
tough. It look for me like it is a tough road trip coming up, despite the schedule. So you
Yeah,
have Ottawa tonight. You've got Detroit coming up on Wednesday.
Detroit Wednesday. Then you have a back-to-back Friday and Saturday. Friday afternoon. So
Yep.
we're going because just for everybody, again, American Thanksgiving, Flames will be in Columbus, Ohio. So they're going to play an afternoon game, 3 o'clock Calgary time. I feel
Yep.
like I don't know what else I was supposed to say
1
there.
o'clock. 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock Calgary time. 3 Eastern.
1 o'clock Calgary time, 3 o'clock in Columbus. And then you play the very next night, Saturday night in Pittsburgh.
So
And then you play Columbus again at home
I
next
look
Tuesday.
at it. I think they can get. I think you're right. You said it. I was thinking three, but I think if they, I think it's realistic that they go 2-2. I think tonight's important for that. I don't. I've never liked them in Detroit. I don't know why. I never liked them in Detroit. They've always like, look, it's a Detroit team that when you look at the standings, like they shouldn't be there where they're at,
No,
right?
they shouldn't be there.
So
No.
I don't like the in Detroit game. I think that feels like more of a trap game than what it is tonight, but still considered tonight as still is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got a back to back, which isn't easy, but Friday afternoon in Columbus. Columbus plays very good at home. They just beat Carolina the other night in a shootout. They took them all the way to a shootout. And then you have Saturday from that back to back against Pittsburgh before some
Yeah.
days off before you head home. The stupid thing is that we should all be saying like, oh my god, you can win all of these games here, which is true. This is a stretch where it's like, okay, what type of team are we going to see now, right?
Yeah.
Like forget what just happened, forget these 4 games you've just won at home. And I think Husk is alluding that to these guys. It's like, guys, great, we've won 4 at home, that's in the back of our minds. Now let's go, let's move on, right? It's a fresh
Let's
slate.
keep it going.
It's a
Yes,
fresh slate.
keep it going.
So like these 4 games, they're looking at these 4 games now, being like,
Yeah.
okay, we got to find a way to get to 500. Even 3 wins here is attainable, right? It's stupid because it's like you look at the 4 games and you're like, man, they should win all 4, no problem, right?
Yeah, that's
Look at the
what we're all
line.
looking
Look
at.
at the slate. They better beat Pittsburgh on Saturday. There's no excuse for them not to lose on Saturday, or excuse me, to win on Saturday. They have to, right? So I think tonight's important because you're right. It's a disgruntled Ottawa team coming in who just lost to Vancouver in a close one. Everybody's getting pissed off there and figuring out what we're going through this song and dance again. Same thing with Detroit. Like we're going through this song and dance again. Columbus, it's a different story out there, right? They're just playing really good at home. And I think we kind of expected that this year from that team. What do you make? And I'll bring up the lineups afterwards for tonight's game. What do you make going into this road trip this week?
I mean, again, on paper, this should be a road trip that the Flames should come out of getting at least 4 points out of. My prediction is that they go 2-1-1. So I think they'll end up with 5 out of 8. I don't have like it sucks that I don't have a better feeling about tonight's game, but it just screams trap game.
Yep.
Like they're going to not come out good. They're going to let Ottawa dictate it, and then they're just not going to be able to get going. But I mean,
that's
again,
why it's important. I was going to say it's important to start fast tonight.
Right. Start like you have been playing. Like, look at I know that Husky said, forget about these 4 games, these past 4 games at home. I would still look at them from the standpoint of this. Think about how you started these games and try to continue to create that moving forward.
Right.
Like, that's what it's about. The other thing is going to be simply that the Flames just have to grind out these games. None of these games, in my opinion, I expect them to be like what we saw, against the Rangers or something like they got to grind them out as best as they can. And that's like how I see it.
They're going to be scrappy games. That's the thing.
Oh,
like,
100%.
They're not going to go down easy.
I think the game that they're going to have the most difficult time, though, is not going to be tonight. I think it's going to be Friday afternoon against Columbus.
Really?
Because you mentioned that, yeah, because again, Columbus plays really well at home and they really fight very similarly to how the Flames go about their own system. I just think that the Flames have to look at it as, while these are winnable games, think about where people were saying about this road trip maybe a month ago and saying, well, because what were the expectations for Ottawa? It's supposed to be a team to compete for a playoff spot. Not happening right now. Detroit, same thing, not happening. Columbus, we knew was going to be not good. And then you have Pittsburgh, who everybody thought would at least be semi-competitive, but they are not. So now the Flames are going into all four of these games potentially as favorites in all four of those games, which I can't believe I'm saying that.
True.
This is another 4-game stretch where it's like, okay, come out of it with a positive record or amount of points, if you want to look at it that way. If you walk out of it with 5 points, in my opinion, regardless to me, how they get those 5 points, I will look at it like that is exactly good. That's great. Anything above 4 or 5 is great for me. That's the way that I look at it.
Yeah, you can't go 3 or lower on this trip.
No,
this is screaming out an opportunity, right?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, that's why I even think like in Detroit it's going to be tough. In Columbus it's going to be tough, right? Like if they start Jari on Saturday, that should be an instant win for this team, right? If you can keep peppering shots at them, some of them are just going to go through, right? Tonight just kind of feels more important though, right? To kind of get off on a good start, right? I think they just want and they know it too. Like the start for tonight's game is going to be just as important, right? They need to stay in this because Ottawa is going to be pissed off because they've lost the last 5 in a row. So speaking of which, let's dive into the lineups for tonight. So Wolf is going to get the start. Makes sense because he's been one of, if not one of the better goalies in the league. He's also leading candidate for the Calder right now. You looked at the homestand from last week where he played 3 of the 4. And to remind everybody that it was 1-0 against Nashville. He shut them out in that one. He played really well against the Islanders on Tuesday. He only allowed 1 goal. He played really well on Thursday against the Rangers, only allowed the 2, very late. One of them wasn't his fault. But anyway, regardless, he's played sensational. And, you got to award it, right? And I think Ledard, I thought it was so important for Ledard to play well on Saturday because it needed to, just make sure that, okay, he took a lot of time off. Now he comes back in ready to go, and he played a great game against the Wild on Saturday despite the late hiccup at the end. He played really well, made some key saves. And, you look at tonight, not a ton of change going into this one, just for clarification here for Neil here. There isn't a lot of change from what we saw on Saturday. I guess the only thing you could look at maybe is that Sharangovich, Backlund, and Coronado, they've kind of taken that away, that Coleman line away from Backlund, and now they have Sharangovich with Coronado still. Something that you probably didn't see last week. So, Kadri, Pospisil had a good connection. I think that was on Saturday where Pospisil scored. Zari's starting to find himself a little bit in that center role. Something we didn't mention too on Saturday is the faceoff percentage was really low again at 35%, I think it was. So that still needs to be figured out. But again, the fourth line stays the same. Bottom 6 defensemen stays the same. Oh, except for Joel Hanley's going into the lineup tonight. Maybe Jake Bean's out with something. No Tyson Barrie either. So I don't know why they're bringing in Hanley for this one. Maybe just to get him going a little bit. I don't know.
Just get him into a game?
Maybe. Who knows, right? Again, you're on a 4-game road trip. A lot of games coming up this week, so I think you need some healthy bodies here.
Agreed.
Uyghur's there with Miromanov, Ball Anderson. Again, Wolf gets the start tonight in Ottawa. So anything kind of screams out? I know you haven't seen the lineup changes in a little while, so a couple of different changes here. Anything kind of screaming out to you?
I just find it interesting. What I'm always a big fan of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of mindset. It's just kind of interesting to see Sharangovich on a bottom 6 role. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
So here, hold on a sec to interrupt.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case. I think they're just rolling 4 lines. I
Yeah.
think that's the
That's the other
identity of
thing.
this
Yeah.
team. There's no top line with this team. They roll 4 lines.
Yeah. They just roll
Aside from the
whatever they want
overtime
to. They just
Top
roll
3
whatever they feel like rolling.
top 3, they just roll with everything. Everybody's
Yeah.
getting equal amount of minutes.
Yeah, for sure. And I like that trio of Sharon Govich, Backlund, Coronado. I feel like it's, from what I've been able to see from the, the little bit that I've had, they seem to be doing well. And I've talked to you about before how big chemistry is, especially in hockey. And for a team like this, it's so important if you're getting on a roll with guys doing well with one another to not change anything, to let them
Right.
just play the way that they're playing. Pospisil, I think, has earned a little bit more minutes, especially coming off of the game against Minnesota, which is good. Connor Zari, I want to see him get a little bit more. I want to see him find the back of the net a little bit more, which I'm sure he will. I don't doubt that. I don't know, like, again, you're saying rolling 4 lines. I'm seeing Blake Coleman on the first line right wing, and I'm like, okay. But then I'm
That's
also
not
like,
it.
again, it's not really that. That's
No.
the thing. Like you look at the defensive core, that's more like what I would expect. I'm like, okay, like that's okay. Ball and Anderson top pairing, fine. Uyghur and Miramanov, again, fine. Hanley, excuse me. I'm curious to know if that's just they want to get him into a game and there's something
Right.
wrong, like
By the
like a
way, sorry, I know I whacked the desk. By the way, Kevin Ball, he's played really well recently. He's played really, really good.
he's
He's
getting
just
minutes, and that's the
he's
important thing.
getting minutes. He's
He's
just
a
a
young player still. People forget
young
that.
guy, tall guy. He's just a bastard to play against in front of the net, like
Yes.
in defensive zone. He is such a mean guy to go up against because he's so tall and he's finding good ways to just get rid of it too. Where he allows Anderson to as well to kind of like for this for Ball and Anderson, they understand their roles. Where Ball's the guy to be like, he's kind of like that last line of defense, quote unquote, and he
Yeah.
allows Anderson to kind of generate any sort of play going up the ice, right? You can make the
Right.
same argument for Uyghur and Miramanov too. Uyghur's kind of the quarterback of the power play and the 5-on-5 just to get it up the ice a bit. Where
Right.
Miramanov and Ball are both the guys that are just like sitting back and kind of that last line of defense where they're big body guys, they take up a lot of room here, and they're able to swat the puck away pretty quickly.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that you're looking at this and saying, with Kevin Ball that he's becoming more of a defensive defenseman, which makes sense because of his big body frame. Because again, like I've mentioned before, he came into the league saying that he's an offensive defenseman. That's how he's played his career. And it's like, okay, cool. But at the same time, you're 6'6" and over, or you're 6 foot, was he 6'8" now?
He's
6'7"?
6'8", something like that,
6'8",
6'7".
over 200 pounds. Like you should be a defensive defenseman, being a
You
physical
need to
player.
be,
And
yeah.
he's getting, but you're seeing like the Flames are doing a good job of developing that side of his game where
Right.
he's becoming more reliable, blocking shots, getting that puck out of that zone as quick as possible. It's good to see. And that's great. And then you got Dustin Wolf starting tonight.
I
Again,
like it.
going back and forth. Why not? I really have no problem with it.
Yeah, because I think the way that we'll see it this week for goaltending is it depends how well he does tonight. I think again, like you have to, but also too, you have to. I think for this road trip, you have to go 2-2 here, regardless.
That's how I
Like,
look at it. I think
I don't care if Wolf does really well tonight. Like you just have to maintain the healthiness here. Like get Wolf to start tonight. Vladar gets to start on Wednesday. Wolf gets it on Friday. Give Vladar on Saturday. I think like that's just got to be the way it is. I don't care about performances.
That's where I think the success of, like we were talking about before, with this tandem being one of the best in the league, it all comes from their creating a healthy balance where Wolf's getting a ton of opportunities. Ladar's getting some really good opportunities as well. Both of these guys are creating healthy competition with one another to make this team like
Gel.
have that reliable goaltending where
Yeah.
it's a way better feeling, Kyle. I'm sure you could agree when you're on a team and you feel confident no matter who's in net because either one of those guys is going to come out and play well.
Yeah.
That's the good feeling right there.
There's confidence all around. The vibes are
Right.
phenomenal around this team, right? And I think even like what's so important to note too is I don't think these guys care about their projections or what they're supposed to get, right?
Right.
They're playing Ryan Huska's hockey where it's like, no, you are now having a role in this system that we have in place. They have so many other guys. Okay, yeah, they're not finding goals from Kuzmenko. I'd like to see a little bit more from him regardless. Like, they're not seeing goals from maybe some guys and point productions from guys who, who should be getting it. Huberdeau and the list goes on, right? But what's important is that Huska is making sure these guys they're contributing. Like, it's a deep roster.
It is.
Like, let's call it as it is.
They
have a lot of depth. They have a lot of depth defensively, where if somebody gets hurt, there's somebody who can come in, right? And I think the nice story for this year has been Kirkland to come up and play some good fourth line minutes, and he's earned time in the NHL, and he's been fantastic, and the whole story's been incredible. Seeing Madison Kirkland too on social media is awesome. His I believe it's his wife, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, like that story's been immaculate, and like it's so deep that even if somebody gets hurt, great, we'll bring back Adam Klapka coming back. Looking at the AHL too, 3 of the top 5 or 6 point getters in the AHL are from the Flames roster system. Insane. Where Rory Kearns, who you might see this year, Jacob Peltier, who you might see this year as well, and I'm forgetting who the third guy is. Don't recall who, but I don't know. Maybe you can find it if you can. But anyway, regardless, like it's becoming more and more. You're looking at this team and this top 12 in this forward group too, and going, crap, this is actually like a deep unit here, because they're getting guys like they're not getting A+ players. They're getting a lot of guys who are playing B+, B. You know what I mean? Like, they're not getting that weird fluctuation of like, oh, this AHL rookie here, like from what the Leafs have, like they're like, because they're so injury riddled, they're like bringing them up fourth line, third line. Then you have like the high key guys there in Marner and Nylander and all that, right? Like for this, it's just all the way down, and it's seemingly working. And you mentioned Christmas, my last point here, being like the deadline. I don't think this is going to go away. I don't think this type of play is going. It doesn't seem this type of play does not feel like it's going to go away.
No, and that's the thing. Like, if you're at this point in the year where you're able to have these type of games and establish this type of identity, it's really hard for it to completely go away. Like, are there going to be points later in this year where the Flames maybe don't look as good as they look right now? Yeah, of course. The NHL season's a marathon, not a sprint. You're going to have moments where you're going to look really good, and you're going to have moments where you look terrible. Like, it's just the nature of it. But as long as the Flames don't lose their identity and lose how they want their guys to play on a night-to-night basis, they're going to be fine, and they're going to remain in the hunt the entire time. And that's where you're then going to have, as you mentioned, to start asking those questions of, what do we do with this team the rest of the year? Do we look at it as not necessarily buying at the deadline? Because the way that they're playing, I don't feel like that they really need to necessarily buy. And I think buying anything might not be a smart move. Do you just let them go? Do you let them go and let them go try to do some? Or do you say to yourself, all right, I think it's time to maybe move some assets, blah, blah, blah. It's weird. It's a weird spot to be in when your expectation was you weren't going to be that good.
Right.
I think is that he's showing that his system works really well with the team that he has in front of him. And that's the mark of a good coach. Knowing the team that you have and saying, I'm going to put them in the best possible position to succeed. And that's what we're seeing so far this year from Huska, and you just hope that it can continue moving forward.
He's got that sort of level-headed personality with him, right? Where nothing's too high, nothing's too low. This is just a process, right? And you mentioned the whole moves as well too. It was brought up earlier that Craig Conroy is still kind of poking around at maybe getting a centerman who can win some face-off draws, because I think that's important, right? And the problem I think that he's going to find is like, okay, well, if we manage to get that, who's the odd man out, right? And it might just be a guy in the fourth line, where it might unfortunately have to be a guy like Justin Kirkland, right? Or it might be you don't want Kevin Rooney to go down because I think he's been the best in his career in terms of playing on the fourth line, right?
For sure.
So I think it's gonna be difficult to figure out like who goes down because I think Coronado has established himself as an NHLer. He's not gonna go down at any point. I can't see it happening. So I think that because of that, it's not a bad thing for Kirkland to go down, right? It's just the nature of the game, kind of, right? And then you also run into trouble. I'll bring it up again because I'm curious. Like if you want to upgrade this, like if you just want to do a small upgrade where it's like I just want a guy who can just win faceoffs, right? It doesn't have to be special, but I just want a faceoff specialist, right? So I'll bring up last thing. I'll bring up the lineups here tonight real quick. I just want to look up again the center depth here, right? So like you have Zari, who they're trying to make it work. Kadri, who's already established himself. Backlund, who's already there. I think it's to try and maybe replace Zari a little bit, right? And you can kind of fiddle with it there, but the top nine, like somebody's going to have to go down to that fourth line. And I actually wouldn't hate it if Blake Coleman played with Lomberg and Rooney.
Yeah.
I don't hate that.
No.
It's not like, but it's also not like, don't look at it as a demotion. Like we're trying to round out our system here, right?
I agree.
So I don't know who out there would fill that role where it's just like we need like a top 6, top 9 guy who's just a face-off specialist who can play well at the face-off circle. I'm not sure if you have anybody in mind.
There were 2 guys that stand out to me. You got Nico Sturm in San Jose, who's making just about $2 million this year. Both of these guys I'll mention are also UFAs at the end of the year.
So there you go.
I mean, there would be rentals. Sean Corrali as well. He's making a little more than $2 million this year in Columbus. Both of those guys in their early 30s. What I like about Sturm is just that he's a big body guy. He's pretty tall, and he's always been known to be a pretty solid faceoff guy. Corrali is pretty good comparatively to what we have from a faceoff perspective. So, yeah, again, like, I just don't know how many teams are willing to give up guys like that right now at this point. I could
not now. No, not now. No.
Like the thing with like the Sharks is that they've been playing really well over the last like 3 weeks. So I don't think they want to do anything right now. I think they just want to let the vibes.
You're kind of just looking ahead, right? Like that's the thing.
You're going to face Corrali very soon on this road trip.
Oh,
so for Craig Conroy, if it's somebody that does, catch his interest, this will be a good game to like watch him and see like, okay, could he be a guy that there? But you bring up a really good point about the fact that you don't want to do anything that may really hurt the chemistry. And people might say, oh, well, you could just, take in and out fourth lines. It's not a big deal. Well, again, the Flames are not necessarily doing a 1, 2, 3, or fourth line. They're just rolling lines with the chemistry that's there. I don't think Rooney deserves to come out of the lineup. I don't think Kirkland deserves to come out of the lineup. And I certainly don't think Ryan Lomberg deserves to come out of the lineup. Backlund, no. Coronado, no. And Sharon Govich, no. If we're just going off of the bottom
top
6.
9. Or bottom 6, yes.
There's, I like, the only thing I could say is try to find a way for these guys to get better on the faceoff dot.
That's just maybe it. Like, you throw Zari in there and Kadri and Backlund. It's like those are guys who, maybe just Kadri and Backlund even being like, like you guys are kind of the catalyst for the faceoff draw here, right?
Backlund for sure.
And I think like it would suck because it's like you would piss off a lot of people if you put Kirkland down, at any point. But if there's some sort of like, listen, if he goes like the next 3 months here and doesn't have a point, then it's like, okay, we have to change things up a little bit, right? And I think we're gonna figure this out closer to the deadline. They're more than likely not going to do anything. The way that this season is going, they don't touch a damn thing, and I love it.
They don't sell anybody, and they don't go after anybody.
That's why,
and that's okay.
Yeah, it is
really
okay. And it's okay. Like you mentioned, I like Nico Sturm, the guy that you mentioned there, because he's already a UFA. He's probably not on a lot of guys' radar, right? If you're just looking at like specifically like him just being good at the faceoff draw, and you could replace Zari and, okay, maybe Kirkland or Rooney would have to go down. I don't know, right? But you have to find a way to get the face-off percentage up. And, or maybe you just carry one of them as a seventh forward.
Right.
That might be the case too, right?
But my argument with, like, if you go and get a guy like Nico Sturm, I don't see him being a guy that you carry as like a guy that's like not playing every night. It's like you brought him in specifically for face-off. Like,
well, I know. I mean, he's going to play. Like, that's just it, right? Like, he's going to play. Right. He's just be a new guy coming in.
Right.
But again, you're also teetering on the edge of, like, you don't want to ruin this so-called chemistry so far, right? Maybe it's just about putting the work in, about, these guys just have to find a way to keep putting the work in to try to win, get this face-off percentage up, because it's just not good right now. It's piss poor, right? So, I mean,
the only big negative thing I think we can look at and say that needs to get better.
Even if they were to get a guy like Sturm, I can't imagine, like, it might cost you a late round pick, a super late.
I'd say like a fourth or fifth.
Like I was thinking fifth. Yeah, I was thinking like a fifth, which is not.
I'm okay with that. I'm like, from a trading standpoint of like value, I'm really okay with that.
Yeah. So, but again, they don't have to do anything, and I think the consensus is that they won't do a damn thing. So that's looking far ahead, but it's a good conversation to have, though, because they need to improve the face-off percentage. So
they do. They need to, and hopefully they can do better tonight against Ottawa. That's the hope.
Yeah.
So,
well, we'll wrap up today's show by talking about the New York Giants.
No, we won't. We'll not do a damn thing about that. We will not. I will end the episode with, I just find it crazy how much the NHL like recycles coaches. Like, you know what I mean?
Congrats to Jim Montgomery.
Yeah, right? Jim Montgomery failed. He might have failed. I don't even know if he didn't even fail upwards. It was just like he got fired, and what was it, like 48 hours later, he's got a new job?
Give or take, yep.
Like what? Like, and I also I don't know how much Jim Montgomery is going to make the Blues that much better at this point in the year.
He won't, because it's players on the ice that need to do it, and that's what you see on the ice, right?
I agree, and so and then with the Bruins, it's just
maybe he will. Well, who knows? Maybe he will. He made the coaching change last year in Edmonton. Look what happened there, right?
I mean, the Blues made a coaching change on January 1st, and they won the cup.
They won the cup.
So I got nothing. I mean, it's like, who knows? It's just crazy. The guys that stick around as long as they have.
It is. Like, it's wild.
Shit. Like, Peter Laviolette might be like the one exception to being like, okay, everywhere he's gone, he's had some amount of big success. I'll give him that. Like, he's taken several teams to the finals. He's had deep playoff runs. It's what he does.
You're starting to notice a lot of the coaches who've been around for a long time, they're fading away, and you're starting to see these new coaches start to take place.
Oh, yeah?
Right?
Unless you're Dan Bylsma.
That's a different story.
And you went. To be fair to Dan Bylsma, he did pay his dues in the AHL.
Oh, for sure, 100%.
It wasn't like he was out of the league for he went to the AHL with the Firebirds. The
Firebirds,
and had a hell of amount of success. And that's why he got the job
in Seattle.
Makes sense. So but I like using what's a good example of this? I'm trying to think of like John Hines might be a good one. He coached in New Jersey, then he went to Nashville. Now he's in Minnesota, and it's how does a guy like him keep getting opportunities when the track record isn't there?
It's not. It's really not, right?
I got why the Devils went and got Sheldon Keefe. Okay, the man had success. I get, granted, not as much in the playoffs, but the dude had a lot of success. Just from where the Devils are in their whole roster buildup. But I don't know, man. Jim Rutherford, I hope it works out. I guess
we're gonna find out.
And then Boston, and God knows what's gonna happen If Claude Julien becomes the Bruins head coach again, like I'm gonna scream.
It's gonna be funny.
I'm not.
Well,
I'm not there for that.
I know. That's gonna wrap it up today. I'll probably go live. I'll be able to do an episode Thursday because it's not American Thanksgiving here, so I know Neil
Because he
enjoy
doesn't
the.
have a holiday to celebrate.
I got nothing to celebrate. It's a normal Thursday. Let them celebrate. It'll be good.
You got to start it off with the Jay Onrat clip. If you, I wish you could legally share that. Just like Happy American Thanksgiving. In Canada like to call it Thursday.
It's Thursday. It'll be Thursday for us here. Yeah, so I'll be able to go live with you guys on Thursday. Neil, enjoy American Thanksgiving coming up this Thursday. And then I will also be, I'll mention it on the next episode too, but I'll also be going live for that Friday game because it's an afternoon game, which is kind of nice. I'll be able to go live for the Flames and the Blue Jackets on Friday. Make sure to check us out there, guys, on Twitter and Instagram. We go live Monday and Thursday and also post up on audio as well. So make sure to check that out. And if you want to as well, go check out Neil on Twitter and myself on Twitter as well, too. I don't want to say the names because we're already like over an hour here.
We're already there.
Yep. All right, that's going to do it for us. 19 in the books. We will see you all again. I'll be back on Thursday, and Neil will be back us next week. Again, happy American Thanksgiving coming up, and we'll see you all again this Thursday. Later.